I just quickly wanted to talk a bit about how I ended up researching about technology and AI, because I'm basically not from much of a tech background. Like I feel many people are specifically interested in tech and program, and I'm, yeah, as you said in your introduction, I'm more interested in what can technology tell us about ourselves. So for me, I started out generally looking into, this is a video from 2018 called Garden of Shiny Lust. So there's like technological objects in there yet, but not like high tech. It's a tanning bed, for example. I was more interested, like, what does the technology mean to us? How can we talk about our life? I was very interested in user experience design and how we're being guided online, how all these places are navigated for us, how they're prepared for us, how they inform our relation to reality. And then I started looking into space technology, because there it is very easy to look into what are the dreams, what are the hopes, what are the political and military implications of technology, because these are not mere technologies. This is like entire nations base their, or proclaim their identity upon these sorts of technology. So this, for example, work from 2019, where I made a version of the International Space Station out of burnt wood. It was called Nosphärentrümmer. So it's like debris of the noosphere, which is a sphere where the dreams reside according to a specific theory. And they basically, in my perception, crashed down. This work already came with an augmented reality app that showed Simon, which is an augmented reality robot that is living on the International Space Station. And he was like, basically via iPad, you can put him into the space station and he talk to you about the history of space travel and the implications of this technology. And then I continued and basically stayed with the idea of data sets, always thinking about also technology as something very spiritual. This is still from a video work from 2020 called Trans-Tech Ascensions. It was basically about cloud technology, which is also something that will be interesting kind of for this talk when we talk about server farms and like the magic and the black box mystery of the server farm in relation to the black box mystery of artificial intelligence. And then probably the earliest thing I did very related to that was I have a performance avatar who's maybe retiring about now, called Tumaro. He's this strange figure, which is partly digital, partly analog. He's maybe from the future. He might be an artificial intelligence. I've done several projects with him. And one of the biggest one, which I've been showing in several places, is a palmistry performance where he reads palms as an interface into digital realities, because we have our smartphone there. So seeing human bodies not just as like a biological mass, but as an interface into digital realities, and we are informed by these digital realities and inform them. So yeah, this is just a rough frame about my work. And then from there, I can jump into this exhibition, X-Agency A21. It was also called New Mutations Within Techno-Psychotic Densities. So the title of the video work that I'll be showing is also part of the exhibition title. I planned and made this exhibition with Basel and Handberg, who is their Danish-Swiss artist duo. And I'll talk a bit about their work for the show as well. And yeah, our idea basically was, I mean, the word agency is in this. Obviously, the name is taken from Elon Musk's and Grimes' firstborn baby. Now they have a second secret baby that we don't know anything about, but this was back then kind of a thing. And we saw there were a lot of memes about portraying this baby as this kind of like cyborg robot thing. And we were thinking about how new life appears within techno-psychotic realities, and Elon Musk and Grimes surely are psychotic and techno-psychotic probably. So yeah, it's a bit of a gimmicky title. But we kicked off the planning of this exhibition with a quote by Henri Bergson, who in L'Evolution Créatrice from 1907 wrote that life in essence is a current sense through matter. So in French, it is le courant. So this current can be, of course, probably not what he meant, but the idea is that this current could be this electricity current that is set through matter. So if we're seeing that, of course, our brain pumps electric impulses through our like meat sack that we carry around with us. And then also thinking if this current is something that makes up life, and we can talk about definitions of life later, there's a million of them, they're funny, then maybe technology itself is a new form of life, or is a form that is alive in itself. And then it comes with the question, when can we call something alive? There it goes to the idea of AI, of agency. Several people have talked about Sophia, the robot, which has a citizenship now. So it's like also you need to be alive to have a citizenship. There's like a lot of interesting, very classical philosophical questions and also gray zones in all this discussion. So with this short intro, I would just jump into, I'm saying that's long. How do I, there we go. I'm gonna change to the video. I hope the sound works, if not, just somebody's screen. Yeah, the video is not 12 minutes, so it's not so long, so we can just have a look and then I'll talk a bit about it and what it meant within the show. Yeah, so that was the video. Sam by Jasper Miller. It's maybe good to mention. Jump back to this. Yeah, so the video was originally shown in an exhibition in Basel. And was shown on this huge LED wall. So many effects that you see in the video, like the entire frame tilting, is of course sought as well as is something that you stand in front, so it changes the entire space around it. I'm going to do the horrible thing of recapping briefly what the video is about, which is something very not nice to do as an artist. But so it's basically we fall into a digital world through a motherboard in a server farm where we start out. And there in this digital unconscious, somehow there's this relict GIFs from like 90s personal websites. And then out of those, this primal soup forms, and it gives birth to something new. In this form, to an entity that's presented by a train. For several reasons, a train, because like first programming languages were inspired by toy train circuits. It's also the Thomas the Engine memes. It's a bunch of references that I like within the train. And then this train goes through this digital landscape and kind of like crushes into reality, fails in a way, but then manages to reform itself in this motherboard where we started out. So the idea is that potentially this digital entity that formed itself without a human creator could break through an analog reality. That is kind of the suggestion in the end. And what I was really interested in is when we talk about AI, when we talk about deep learning, all these mechanisms, then it is always like we humans program something. We have the intention to X, we do this, we do that. But I don't know, the internet is incredibly vast and crazy and dangerous and bizarre and kind of old by now. And there's like chunks of old data roaming around. And I was just like, what happens if you're in one of those like old server farms in like, I don't know, 90s Counter-Strike forum entries, you know, when these bits and bytes kind of rearrange themselves due to copying errors, could they become some sort of consciousness as like cell-based, carbon-based life must have formed, I think, what, 4 billion years ago, probably like in some deep sea volcano situation. So yeah, having this kind of pressure cooker where something like this could come up. And then it's also the idea of like, we would not be aware potentially, and maybe this is already happening, right? There's this like gigantic international network, there's deep sea cables and satellites and whatnot, and somewhere in between, maybe something is conscious and we don't even know it, and is an agent on the internet. And we have like a lot of sci-fi examples for this. There's several wonderful examples in the great anime series Cowboy Bebop, where you have like a satellite that's lonely, so it starts painting pictures with a laser. So there's a lot of these ideas that there's like these intelligences that are not planned, but that happen by accident, that happen by mistake, that happen kind of like by some sort of evolutional process out of debris, which is interesting in the relation of how life is described and informed. Like I can maybe jump in. There's the NASA, the NASA uses the definition of life as self-sustaining chemical system capable of Darwinian evolution. So something that could somehow intentionally or non-intentionally better itself, which is something that we aim for in an AI context, right? That we don't program it, but via deep learning, AI reprograms itself so constantly that it improves and learns. So all these definitions and images of life, of agency, of consciousness get really jumbled up, and we have very interesting questions to ask ourselves, especially because we encounter systems that pretend to be intelligent, like Siri, like Alexa, like all the classics, you know, but they're really not. They're incredibly dumb, and they're just like a mixture of voice to text generation systems, and they're yeah, there's these bot systems that work on a lot of data, but there's no form of intelligence, and there's also no form of intention, which is kind of important, which is also, I once was invited to speak somewhere, and someone asked me if artificial intelligence could make art, and I'm like, well, art is about intention, right? It's not painting the best picture, but it's about having the artistic intention. And no machine that we know of, at least, has the intention to make art. So if there's like an AI made art, like the new portrait of the Queen, which was unveiled yesterday, I think, is an AI artwork. But of course, it's not an AI artwork. It's an artwork by an artist who programmed an AI to produce something. And you give up a certain amount of agency as an artist. You give the agency away to the machine, but that doesn't mean that the machine has agency, which is interesting with all these terminologies, because we're kind of like very, maybe even careless when we talk about that. Yeah, that's to the video itself. And then this is a slide I wanted to show, because the entire space, we decided to just have 2 walls. So it was a concept to have 2 walls in it, which is why I quickly want to talk about the wall in the back that is like filled and made out of light. That's the work by Basel and Handwerk. And they also were interested in this in-between space, because so this work deals with that any virtual system is based on false, which is 0, or truth, which is 1, which is a Boolean binary directory that leaves nothing but one thing and its opposite. But what really lies in the milliseconds from 0 to 1 between the off and the on. So this is just a bit of the action. I'm going to turn the sound down because it's very loud. So just having this play in the background. So I think it's very crucial to talk about the in-betweens. And I think it's also the in-betweens that are difficult for us to grasp within, also already in our relation to nature, with our relation to others, with our non-existent but projected relation to potential extraterrestrial life. We always see ourselves in the other, like we need to define what it makes us human by having an other. And we kind of do this with artificial intelligence, which is really fun, because this is the one we kind of created. Or not we, this is also the other big misconception, that we created. Of course, we don't. Like very few people, this very potentially problematic intentions and very strong capitalist-driven, Ayn Rand-inspired ideologies create this. And then we have to deal with this, right? It's like, oh, well, if it isn't just like the decision of some billionaire, we now, with consequences we now all have to live with. So yeah, this is just in the relation to this in-between moment, which is why I find this work to be very interesting, because it has this, like, you can't really grasp it. Of course, the video doesn't translate that, but yeah, this is our interest to kind of like not go along and be, oh, there's something, you know, there's a Sophia, there's a whatever. It is made with an intention, and now we push it to an extent that we can proclaim it's alive. But what happens in this in between? Maybe there's something already. Yeah, I mean, as I said with the Henri Bergson quote, maybe there's this current in matter already that is a sort of life. And yeah, I mean, we still don't really know what it means to be alive, and how much of this experience of being alive is just produced in our brains, or in just one brain that is, I don't know. I don't want to go all Jungian collective consciousness about you. I've just kind of like been to Lacan with the other and seeing yourself with the other, but this is kind of what's happening. So it's basic, it's psychoanalytics, it's just basic, it basically goes all the way back to the roots of philosophy. And I think we have to be very careful, and also careful with terminology, especially with terminologies like intelligence. And with this in mind, with being careful, I want to jump to another project which I did following up this work. I went for a residency in Berlin, and I wanted to investigate how, like, just having this video and this exhibition, thinking about how technology could become alive, And then I was interested in how technology influences how human life is created. So I was talking to people in sperm banks, in fertility clinics. There's a lot of startups now that deal with the issue of fertility, especially with female fertility and struggles in fertility. And this is like super contemporary, because probably due to global warming and microplastic, we don't know for sure, but probably because of those, fertility rates are declining rapidly. And there's predictions that maybe by 2050, around 90% of men will be infertile. So it's basically children of men in a nutshell. And so, yeah, so technology plays a huge role by now, how a lot of life is conceived, how it is planned, how it is, and then, yeah, how it comes to be. And I was very, you know, going to Berlin, being like, hey, this will be great, and how to spend a summer in sperm banks, this will be really great. And I just noticed how tricky this is, because then there's a lot of like ethical questions that arise really fast. There's a lot of like really heavy cultural baggage that comes with the questions of fertility, of having children or not having children. And I really found that I couldn't access this. And then I ended up working with fountains, which also are tied to fertility in a lot of cultures. And there in Berlin is a fertility fountain by Hugo Lederer, who's a sculptor, and he made this fountain in the 30s. And it's kind of comical, because it's really classic attributes of fertility, like it's the massive boar that sits on top of it. I think the entire fountain is 18 tons of stone. And yeah, I did a 3D scan of this fountain and then arranged this. And it was kind of like, I mean, I wanted to show this, not as saying, look, it's a great artwork. I don't think this is particularly interesting, but more to be like, this whole issue is very complex when we talk about life, about consciousness, about how it is informed, directed, orchestrated by technology, and what are the ethics and political implications of that, and maybe moments where it is difficult to form a position, and so kind of like a way for me, yeah, to remove myself from that. That was just a quick part of this. How are we doing? There's plenty of time. Okay. This is a generic stock photo, and I'm absolutely obsessed by generic text stock photos. They're always blue. They always have this weird kind of technical dust in them, which is beautiful and bizarre and completely unnecessary. This is a photo depicting a deep learning network. So, which will make sense when I'm doing this bit of a jump now. But I'm guessing that, I mean, the topic of deep learning already popped up before, and is of course not, again, terminology. It is not the same as AI, but we use it kind of as AI, right? A lot of times. And I also think there's no point in talking about all the shortcomings of it. There's great articles about it. James Bridle writes about it a lot, like how these, especially image recognition systems, fail because of different reasons. But basically what we start from an archive, a set of given information that is then being processed in different layers, cross-referenced, and then comes up with a new image, comes up with like an image description. And we experience this all the time. Like every post we do on Instagram, if you have super bad internet and it loads slowly, you get the meta text, which is hilariously wrong often. And a weird form of contemporary poetry. Image may contain 6 people and plant inside, maybe no, something like that. So we have these recognition systems that we also interact with constantly. Like we need to prove that we're human by showing which squares hold the boat. So we're also training these technologies without being paid for it. But why I'm showing this and this set of like different slides is because I want to go to the first part, which is the archive. For all these moments of artificial intelligence, we need to remember it's not like an endless line of code that's being written. That's an idea that existed in the 60s and 70s. of making code, right? It's the same with text generation and so on. But that doesn't work. We do these systems that learn by themselves, more or less, and they learn by themselves from an archive. And we all know probably the fake Harry Potter text that an AI wrote based on the books. There's a Beatles song based on all the Beatles songs. There's a lot of like output, creative output based on archived data sets, which is also why I want to talk about this, because the GIFs are used in like the vintage GIFs that then become the primal soup, that becomes the train, that becomes this consciousness, are also from an archive. And it's just that the archives we use and the way we create these archives determine the outcomes of deep learning processes that then inform what we call artificial intelligence. So the importance of archives is incredibly big. I quickly just want to mention, here I'm talking about a specific archive, but also, Wikipedia, for example, is one of the archives we use most. And we know that Wikipedia has a huge sexism problem because over 80% of the editors and writers are men. And a lot of articles on women are just not being published because they don't seem to be important. And there's, for example, a great group that I want to mention, I think a Swiss-German-based group by K8 Design and by Julia Pirizina. It's called Who Writes Her Story, and they do feminist collective work, doing evenings where they write Wikipedia articles from a feminist perspective. And that's not just like a symbolic gesture. We just really need to make sure that the archives we talk about and that we use to form this technology that will define our future, it is used in lawmaking, it is used in facial recognition software by police and so on, that this does not include all the biases that we currently have in our society. And there's this thing that black faces are have a lot less accuracy in being recognized than white faces, because there's a racial bias within facial recognition software. When Flickr launched the recognition software that labeled their photos automatically back in the time when Flickr was relative. There's relevant. There was an image, like the account by Michelle Obama was labeled as a monkey. So we have a very, very specifically racist component of these systems, because the deep learning software that is then called AI, which is seemingly neutral, like in the clip we saw before of Sophia, she claimed that humans are irrational, robots are super rational. We can make all the decisions because we're just data sets, and that's neutral. And technology is never neutral. Never, never, ever. And especially AI that is informed by archives, that is made from sources that have often ideologies, agendas, or biases, is very tricky. And what we see here is, of course, the North Church of Christ /Scientist, which is the head base of the Internet Archive since 2009. The Internet Archive, I hope everyone knows, is a wonderland on the internet. It hosts, I wrote this down because it's just too amazing. So the Internet Archive is an American digital library with a stated mission of universal access to all knowledge. And it just holds, digital websites, software, applications, music, movies, moving images, millions of books. And it is advocating, so here again, we talk about ideology. So this is also an ideology. I would claim a good one, but people who own copyright may disagree. So it's advocating a free and open internet. And as of May 7, 2022, it holds over 35 million books and texts, 7.9 million movies, videos, and TV shows, 842,000 software programs, 14 million audio files, 4 million images, 2.4 million TV clips, 237,000 concerts, and over 682 billion web pages on the Wayback Machine. Which I'm saying that again, 682 billion web pages. So just speaking about vastness and scale of the internet, which is so mind-bending and beyond, and even more mind-bending that we're basically spending all our time on the same 6 websites that are owned by 3 companies, by people who are definitely insane. So this is just something that, yeah, I don't know, just, I'm getting very emotional. I'm very sorry. So yeah, so we have this the Wayback Machine, a great time to spend, a great place to spend a lot of time in, and I used a special service by the Internet Archive, which is, does that work? Hello. Ah, there we go. So this is also just a recording. It's called GIF Cities, and they have links to all these vintage GIFs. So I found, I think most of them, I would say around 80% of the GIFs are used on this website. It's amazing because it is kind of not curated. They use web crawler software, which I love. I love web crawler, just sounds like these weird spider animals that goes through the internet. If you read Thomas Pynchon, he also uses them like that, which I highly recommend. So yeah, it's web crawling websites and then pulling content of them. So this is just a recording of this page. You have in the bottom suggestions. I picked balloons because that's, I mean, it's fun. And then it loads very slowly and it loads in Comic Sans because why not? And then you get all these weird GIFs of balloons. Yeah, which is, I mean, it's a beauty, and let's just stick with beauty. We have Neopets, kind of like now thinking about all the crypto stuff with Board Yacht Club and stuff. And then, oh yeah, and then I put in intelligence because we're talking about artificial intelligence. So I wanted to know, what do the GIFs say about intelligence? Maybe we find the definitive answer of what intelligence can be. Turns out it is Hello Kitty with a glittery heart, which I don't doubt. I take this as a definite truth. I clicked on, I clicked on the one, increase your intelligence. So this is wonderful. This is from 2009. It's not even that old, in the Wayback Machine. And you now can go to this page. Why wouldn't you want to become smarter? You would have nothing to lose. So yeah, this is the great thing. There's a web crawler that doesn't copy the content, but just links the content. You can actually jump into these web pages. They're still online. Like, this is still existing. Yeah, which is for me absolutely amazing. So yeah, it was just this short introduction to this thing. Another quick thing for anyone in an art context, they have a great collection in cooperation with the Guggenheim, where they have like artist books scanned. So there's a lot of things to discover. This is just like throwing that out there. And then I think before we can jump into the questions, and I've been talking a lot and probably very fast, I want to show one more video, which is kind of like a bit of a gimmicky thing. Ivan yesterday talked about Boston Dynamics. And this is Spot, which he also introduced. But I talked about archives and artificial intelligence. And of course, the thing is that also a lot of these archives are ordered and structured by artificial intelligences, or like by software that sorts them of whatever kind, and also like protects them, and also like a lot of info you get out of something. Like if you research something, probably somewhere a deep learning software will be part of presenting this information to you. And so for me as an artist, I don't understand tech, I don't understand a lot, I don't understand like images and metaphors. And so this is beautiful. So this is Spot. And he, oh no, Spot. Hello. Yeah. Yeah, so Spot is here in the ruins of Pompeii, which can also be seen as an archive. Like there was someone cracked DNA code of some of skeletons found in Pompeii. So this is kind of like, because it was covered by volcanic ash, kind of like this incredibly authentic archive of life during Roman times, where we find graffitis in the shape of penises that show in the way of the next brothel. So it's a very interesting archive learning about ancient life. And now we have these systems, this drone, which isn't an artificial intelligence in itself, neither is Spot, but they of course use software that is based on deep learning algorithms to navigate this, and they're protecting this archive. And this happens digitally a lot, right? That like you have archives that are sorted and structured by artificial intelligence. But here we just have the case that, funnily enough, there's this visual robot that symbolizes a form of intelligence, even though it actually isn't. So it's also this like projection that we do. And he is in this archive of a city. And I think this is just like, especially in relation to the video I showed that I did, was this train running around these like computer circuits and motherboards. I think like, I think this robot in Pompeii and the train in my video, they could be really great friends. Yeah, this is like, I think kind of where I want to end by friendship. Friendship between entities.